The shampoo you used this morning may have contained chemicals that were never listed on the bottle, not because the company broke the law, because the law never required them to tell you. Not the hidden byproducts formed during manufacturing, not the chemicals buried inside the word fragrance, not the preservatives that slowly release other compounds while the bottle sits in a hot shower for weeks. You read the label, you thought you knew what was inside. You didn't. And once you understand how this industry actually works, you will never look at shampoo the same way again. Welcome to the brand truth. Here's what most consumers never hear. In the United States, shampoo is still regulated under cosmetic laws, originally written in 1938, before modern toxicology, before endocrine disruption research, before long-term exposure studies. And under that system, companies are not required to prove cosmetic products are safe before selling them. But the biggest loophole is not what gets added into shampoo, it's what forms afterward. One example is 1,4-dioxane. A probable human carcinogen according to the EPA. It can form during a manufacturing process called ethoxylation, commonly used to create softer textures and richer foam. And because it forms during manufacturing, instead of being intentionally added, companies are often not required to list it on the label. Then there's fragrance, one word legally capable of hiding dozens of undisclosed chemical compounds because fragrance formulas are protected as trade secrets. Most consumers think ingredient labels are full transparency documents. In reality, they're often the minimum disclosure the law requires, and some of the biggest beauty brands in the world built entire empires inside that gap. At number 5, Pantene. Pantene became globally famous because it creates immediate cosmetic results. Hair feels softer, looks smoother, feels repaired. But that effect often comes from silicone-heavy conditioning systems designed to coat the hair shaft quickly. Independent safety databases including EWG's Skin Deep have given several Pantene formulas moderate hazard ratings based on cumulative ingredient concerns. Not because one ingredient alone looks catastrophic, because long-term combined exposure under daily use remains surprisingly understudied. And this is where consumers misunderstand the system. People assume if it's everywhere, it must already be fully proven safe. That's not how cosmetic regulation works in America. The system is often reactive, not preventative. Pantene operates within current law, but legal compliance and full transparency are not the same thing. At number 4, Head and Shoulders. This brand built itself around medical trust, the responsible option, the clinically backed choice, which is why the ingredient controversy matters. Certain U.S formulas contained methylisothiazolinone, known as MIT, a preservative linked in dermatology literature to allergic sensitization and skin reactions. Europe reviewed the ingredient and banned it in rinse-off cosmetic products. America didn't. Same category, different safety standards. Studies have documented that repeated exposure to MIT can worsen irritation over time, especially in people with eczema or damaged skin barriers, meaning a shampoo designed to help scalp issues could potentially become part of the irritation cycle itself. Head & Shoulders did not violate U.S law. The real question is how much the law still allows. At number 3, Herbal Essences. No brand on this list sold the image of natural beauty more effectively. Flowers on the bottle, botanical imagery, words like pure and clean everywhere. But branding and transparency are not the same thing, because behind the natural marketing sites one of the least transparent systems in personal care, fragrance. That single word can legally hide dozens of undisclosed compounds. Environmental health researchers have repeatedly raised concerns about certain synthetic fragrance chemicals linked to endocrine disruption. And independent advocacy testing has detected 1,4-dioxane contamination in products using ethoxylated surfactants across similar formulas. Again, not intentionally added, formed. That's the pattern consumers rarely see. The product doesn't need to be technically illegal to still raise legitimate transparency concerns. At number 2, OGX. This was the moment many consumers realized ingredient labels could be legally accurate while still hiding the most important part of the story. OGX marketed itself around nourishing oils and salon-quality repair. but lawsuits alleged the products contained DMDM-hydantoin, a preservative that releases formaldehyde over time, especially in warm, humid environments, like your shower. Suddenly, consumers who thought they were buying hydrating repair products were learning about formaldehyde-releasing chemistry through hair loss lawsuits instead of through transparent labeling. Johnson & Johnson disputed the allegations, but the controversy exposed a larger problem. American labeling law does not require companies to clearly explain secondary chemical release systems in plain language. The preservative appears on the label. What it releases usually doesn't. And for many consumers, that changed how they viewed the entire industry. At number 1, TRESemmé. This became one of the biggest quality control controversies in modern personal care. TRESemmé is owned by Unilever, one of the largest consumer goods corporations in the world. In 2022, multiple aerosol dry shampoo products across several Unilever brands, including TRESemmé, were recalled after independent testing detected benzene contamination. Benzene is classified as a Group 1 carcinogen, the highest cancer risk classification used by international researchers. And benzene was never supposed to be there. It wasn't an ingredient. The contamination was linked to aerosol propellant systems, meaning consumers could never have identified the issue by reading the label. That's what makes this story so important. Consumers are constantly told, just read the ingredients. But some of the biggest risks in modern personal care products may involve contaminants and byproducts the label was never designed to reveal. Unilever conducted the recalls voluntarily, but millions of products still reached consumers before the contamination became public. Now here's the part most companies don't want compared side by side with those brands. The alternatives that chose transparency first. At number 3 on the buy list, Vanicream. Vanicream was developed specifically for people with medically sensitive skin. No fragrance, no dyes, no formaldehyde-releasing preservatives. Dermatologists regularly recommend it for eczema, psoriasis, and contact dermatitis patients. What makes Vanicream different is not what it includes, it's what it intentionally leaves out. At number 2, True Botanicals. Most beauty companies perform internal testing consumers never see. True Botanicals publicly releases third-party testing for contaminants and safety screening. That level of transparency is extremely rare in personal care. The company also carries Made Safe certification, which screens formulas against known or suspected carcinogens. No synthetic fragrance systems, no formaldehyde donors, no ethoxylated surfactants associated with 1,4-dioxane formation. The products cost more, but transparency costs money, and most brands still choose not to provide it. At number 1, Beautycounter. Beautycounter built its entire identity around one uncomfortable fact. American cosmetic law restricts surprisingly few ingredients compared to modern international standards. So the company created its own restricted ingredient system called the Never List. More than 2,700 ingredients banned internally, compared to the tiny number historically restricted under federal cosmetic law. Beautycounter avoids synthetic fragrance blends, formaldehyde donors, parabens, and high-risk preservative systems associated with transparency concerns. But what separates the brand structurally is this. The company publicly pushed for stronger cosmetic safety laws, even though stricter regulation would increase costs for the company itself. That's rare in this industry. Before you leave, here are 3 things you can check on almost any shampoo right now. First, search the product in the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep database. Second, watch for these preservatives: DMDM-hydantoin, quaternium-15, bronopol, diazolidenyl urea. These are formaldehyde-releasing systems. Third, watch for ingredients ending in -eth, like sodium lauryl sulfate. Those ingredients undergo ethoxylation, the process associated with possible 1,4-dioxane formation. And if a company doesn't publicly release third-party contamination testing, they are operating at the regulatory minimum because current law usually does not require disclosure. What this video is really about is not shampoo. It's about the distance between what billion-dollar marketing systems are designed to make consumers believe and what the documented regulatory record actually shows. The companies in this video are not necessarily breaking rules. They are operating inside rules built for another era. And the people most affected are ordinary consumers who believed reading the label carefully was enough. Share this with someone who still has one of these products sitting in their shower, because they deserve to know something the label was never required to tell them. At the brand truth, the label is never the whole story.